All right. So, what do you remember about your dad?
Well, he was a farmer down in Oklahoma at Hobart, Oklahoma, small town in the country, and it was in the Indian Territory at that time.
Okay.
And so uh, he was buried after he died, had pneumonia, and he died from that. And the Indians came, the Cherokee Indians, and requested that he be buried in their cemetery, which we allowed them to do because he was very comfortable with them. They loved him too. And so my mom at that time agreed to be okay. So he's buried in that cemetery with Indians. So it's an honor, so to speak, if a white man was buried in their cemetery.
What year did he die? Do you remember?
I can't remember the year. I don't have it in my head all right now.
Uh-huh.
But I was only 2 years old, I think, at that time.
So that would have been, what,
So
1935?
I'm 83 now. So it's been a long time ago.
1935, because you were born in 33?
Yeah.
Wow. That was, I wonder what it was like for the Indians in Oklahoma at that time.
Well, you remember the Cherokees were suffered really bad because they had that march, to take them to a reservation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those Indians died of the Cherokee Nation.
Yeah.
So that's still kind of a sore spot today with them.
Well, and they're
they
going
uprooted
through,
them and took them on that march for a long ways,
yeah.
cross country, walking. So it was one of the bad things that the government did during that time. So.
And they're going through a lot right now with the whole water thing, so they've been through a lot of struggles.
Well, there's a lot of tribal things that they still have that they want to hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
And we just think, well, we can come and uproot it and no big deal because we're in this 20th, first century. And they still want to hang on to some things. And what affects their cemeteries or water rights or whatever that may be, they don't want to give those up, those rights. And they should have some protection for the tribal things that they want to keep.
Right. I agree.
So he dressed a lot like they did, If you look at one of his pictures, he'd have one of their headsets on, not a turban, but just
like this in
like
picture
this.
number 1 here.
Yeah, see what he has on his head, then what he had it wrapped around him, and that's Indian stuff.
Huh. Was he a farmer?
He was a farmer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, not very profitable either.
Right.
At that time, you just eked out a living, you might say, and that was about it. But the Indians were very good to help you. If you're an Indian's friend, you're a lifetime friend with them.
Oh.
That's the way they look at it.
Wow.
And I can recall when we lived in Hobart, they came and helped us a lot. They don't come and ask, they just come and do it.
So when your dad passed away, did they help your mom a lot?
Helped her until my uncle that lived in California, he had a well-paying job and he owned a house in Tulsa. And so he moved my mother and the family to Tulsa so he could better take care of them. And that was in the city there. Basically, it was on Sand Springs, was a small suburb of Tulsa, and they had a streetcar that ran 8 miles out of Tulsa into Sand Springs, back and forth.
Wow.
So we grew up kind of going into school there at Sand Springs.
Well, that did kind of lead me into the other question. What was life like for you growing up? And tell me some of the things you did as a kid.
Well, we didn't have a lot, but we didn't miss it because we didn't know what we were missing. Because, other people that had things that we didn't have, we didn't even know about.
Uh-huh.
So we were just poor folks, and we lived in our means, and and just lived that way. That's the way we did, and entertained ourselves. Had a garden that we took care of. But my uncle was very careful to take care of us, and so he moved us into that house, and we could live there and go to school there. And my mother worked in a cotton mill about a mile away, and to help support us. And so that was hard for her too, with children. And so we had a live-in lady that kind of helped take care of us when she was at work. And so she got her meals and everything taken care of there.
Now, when you grew up, was it in the Depression or was it after the Depression?
Well, I think the Depression would have been a little bit after that going on, but there was a mixture of things going on, you know, with the economy. But the cotton mills were stable because people had to have cotton, but they didn't pay very well. It was like a, you know, what we would call a sweatshop, you might say. And there she had to walk to work and then walk back home. And so it was a hard job for her. And I always remember how much she put into us as a family, you know, just trying to make ends meet. So.
Huh. Now, you were born in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had coon hounds. So did you go out and hunt and then sell the pelts for extra money for the family? I mean, how'd that work?
You mean 2 homes, did you say?
No, you had 2 hound dogs, right?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
We always had a dog around.
Uh-huh.
And I was always attached to them. And they get attached to you. And so I always made sure that they had something to eat because there wasn't many scraps left over. So sometimes I would make a pan of cornbread just so they could have some.
Now, did you hunt for coons and stuff to sell?
Coons and possums and things, and sometimes we'd sell those hides.
Did you use the meat?
No, we didn't use the meat for that. Possums are too greasy to eat.
Oh.
They're really, really fat. And but the hides were sellable at the time, and you know, if you had 50 cents or $1 out of something, that was a big deal.
Yeah, guess so. Now, did you have to like get up late at night and stay up all morning to go hunt with them, or how did that work?
You would go hunting after dark, and you could figure out about where they were at, and the dogs could help hunt them out too, and so, you know, you could set traps if you wanted to for them. So they just, as animals do, they hang out in certain places. And so if you had a flashlight, you could always grab their eyes and see where they're at.
Ah.
So.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, what made you decide to go into the Navy? That's picture number 2.
Well, the Navy, I was in high school then, and so I had to decide what was going to happen at that point, and so I decided after looking at the Army and the Navy, and I decided the Navy would be best for me. I thought I could swim if I had to, so. And that was tough. They took you into boot camp and tested you out for swimming. It was a long, long pool that they put you in, and you had to swim that whole pool. And you couldn't go to the side, either side, because they just push you back in. And so it's either you swim or drowned, and if you're about to drown, it'll take you out.
Wow. I don't think they do that these days, do they?
Probably not.
Now, you were in the Korean War?
Korean War, yeah. So it was in 1951, and the war was, you know, going pretty strong. And I was on a ship that, well, after boot camp, I traveled on a ship to get over to the ship I was going to be on because it never came back to the States. It just stayed there in Korea. And so that ship was a decoy ship, that would go in and out of the harbors that were large there and find out where the gun emplacements were, because you couldn't bomb them out by airplanes because it was so rigid that the bombs could not find the openings. So we'd have to go in and find the openings for them, and then if you're going to use our guns, you had to hit the mouth of it head on. And so that's what we did. Then we patrolled up and down North Korea because there was a Russian submarine up north. And so they would come down and we'd pick them up on sonar and then drop depth charges on them.
Wow. So tell me about how and when you met Mom and the key to a long marriage. Now this is number 3.
Nope.
That's the day of your wedding.
Yeah. Well, I was home on leave.
Mm-hmm.
And after I was in Korea for 18 months, I had a little bit of leave time. They shipped me back. But anyway, she was working in a drive-in theater there in Tulsa, but her folks lived in Avoca, Arkansas. But her sister and brother-in-law was living in Tulsa, so she had this job, waiting on cars. It was a drive-in situation. And so I met her and one of her girlfriends that was working there at the time. And they had supper clubs at that time you could go to, and you could eat and dance if you wanted to. And so it wasn't like they served alcohol or anything. It was just a nice place to go. So I asked them if they wanted to go out to the supper club afterwards, and so we all went out and got acquainted. And so that's how I met your mom.
Now, I remember her telling me a story about you coming in and what you ordered. So
Fried egg sandwich.
And she said, and a beer.
And a beer.
And then you went out and you were kicking the tire of the car.
Yeah, it was a borrowed car that my sister and brother-in-law had. And so I was driving that a little while I was, home. And it was kind of an older car, too. So I was trying to make sure everything worked on it. And show off probably a little bit.
Were you in your suit? She said something about your custom-made suit strutting around like a peacock.
Well, I did have custom-made suits that could be made real cheap over there.
Yeah.
And so I had several of those that I had made and brought home with me. But I didn't have a lot of clothes other than a uniform.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to wear that all the time either.
So she probably thought, woo, that guy's handsome.
Well, I had a little more hair at the time.
Oh, my goodness. So what day did you get married?
It would have been in 1954.
It was the day after Christmas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a country church,
mm-hmm.
Just very small, where her parents lived at that time. And so it was just, I only had so much time off for leave, and I wanted to get back, and then back on ship again, then I'd come back, and so she would go to California after that and wait for me.
Oh.
And so some of her relatives, her uncle lived there, and so she stayed with him for a while till I got back.
Hmm. Okay, so now what made you decide to go into the ministry?
Well, I had been taking courses at sea that were college courses, and when I got out I wanted to, go do that, and so I was in college, but while I was in there at college, I started attending church with Donna and my mother. And so I began to be more or less convicted about what I was doing and not doing. And so I gave my heart to the Lord. And so then I started going to Bible college to learn more about it. And so I went to a Baptist Bible college and got through with that, and that's how I got into it. But it actually started different than that because I was actually working for a Goodyear company when I got out in Topeka, Kansas. They gave me a job after I got out of school. So I moved up there, and they had asked me one time to do some MC work for one of their events. And so I did that, and it kind of propelled me more into the ministry because different people would be at that event, even like church people or other ministers, and just different calls of life from people. They would ask me to come and speak to their congregation. So I got more or less drafted into it through that process. And,
wow. So it's like you couldn't get away from the Lord. He was after you, huh?
right. And I really wasn't thinking that would ever happen, that it did happen that way. But I guess he had it planned out. And so I spoke at a lot of large churches at that time that were fundamental congregational churches, you know. And some of them were small. And so it just kind of propelled me into ministry at work at that time. And then I wanted to know more about everything myself, so I went into the deep studies of it, what the doctrinal issues are and all those kind of things. And it seemed to me that at that point of the denominations that were available, I thought that the Southern Baptist denomination was more true to what I would believe.
Cool. Well, now this picture, number 3 here, is of the old Skelly station you owned in Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah, so when I got out of, when I left the Goodyear company after 13 years, I moved to Lawrence and purchased the gas station. It was down on 9th Street, right below the college. And so that was pretty good. I liked it. And of course, your brothers were getting older, and it gave them something to do. And I thought this would be a really good thing for them, you know, and I could pay them for working. And so it kind of worked out. And then I moved down to a larger station than the one here on 9th Street that had more pumps to it and a lot more traffic. And
it was across from the Dillon Street.
Yeah, it was very, very, very good station. And then I moved because I was Goodyear. I moved some contract work from tires of Goodyear to where I was at the station. So I supplied all the tires for different companies in that area. And one of them was a U-Haul company. And so that worked out pretty good. It was a paper transaction. And so I just made the profit off of it. And that worked out pretty good.
So life's taken you on many adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me some funny stories about the Skelly station?
Well, you meet a lot of funny people in a place like that. There's all walks of life coming through you there. And I did, you know, display myself as being a Christian running it. And we even discounted gas for them if they had a Christian card.
Oh.
And we discounted.
Kind of like a military gets discounts at places.
Yeah, so it was like 2 cents off on their gas.
Oh.
But they had to carry the card and show it.
What about if the military would come in? Would you do that for them if they did?
Yeah, we probably would, but we didn't have it scheduled at the time that way.
Now,
then we had a car wash there too.
You had people that come and hang out there too.
Oh yeah, they just it was kind of a hangout. And the guy that lived in apartments next door was an Indian. And we've become real good friends.
So it's almost like full circle to your dad, you know?
Yeah, and that was Ernie Niosi, and his wife lived in the apartments, and they were on a Potawatomi reservation. He was a chief up there. And so he started attending our church. And then he passed away. But I have to back up a little bit because my oldest son was 17, and he drowned up in Lake Perry. And so he was buried there in Lawrence, and we bought some plots there because of that. And so Ernie Niosi decided he wanted to be buried next to us, so he went and bought a plot next to our plots.
Wow.
And that's the way Indians are. They're so dedicated to you.
Wow.
If you're a friend, you're a lifetime friend.
That's awesome.
And so he and his wife had plots next to ours.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot for interviewing with me. That was like a really good story of your whole life.
Uh-huh.
And so I really appreciate it.